adjustable trip. A non-adjustable trip means a fixed trip. So if you put a 20 amp breaker in a panel, it's going to trip at 20 amps. That's non-adjustable trip. So this is the important part right here. Whenever you have, and there's questions in your homework, whenever you have a trip circuit breaker, what's the first thing you do? You don't just reset the circuit breaker. Oh, that one tripped. Go turn it back on and see if it trips again. I don't know how many foremen have told people to do this. You need to find out why the circuit breaker is tripping first, and then you reset it. The reason for that is circuit breakers are generally limited for limited operation. The more time you trip them, the sooner it wears out. The sooner it wears out, the sooner you have to replace it. Any of you been in those old buildings downtown with those 50-year-old circuit breakers in them? Yeah, they don't trip at all. Okay, let me see. Where am I? I'm almost there. I swear I'm almost there. Federal Pacifics? Oh yeah, those things are terrible. There's one reason why nobody sells them anymore. And everybody replaces them. So there's some circuit breaker markings that you need to be aware of. You need to know what the amp rating of the circuit is. We'll say like a 20 amp circuit breaker should have 20 amp circuit breaker marker on it. The interrupt ratings, which would be the AIR rating or the AIC rating. In this case, I'll say like a 10K AIR rating. That's supposed to be a 10. Sorry about my handwriting here. Means that if you have 10,000 amps going through there in case of a short and you open up that breaker, it'll be able to break that apart. If you have over 10,000 amps going through that due to a short and you open up that breaker, you may still have some current going through there. So that's what the interrupt rating is. Circuit breakers as switches, and again, this is all in your reading. Circuit breakers that you use as switches have to actually be specifically marked as switches. Like they have to have an HIV marking on it. Where is that? Where is that? It has to have an SWE market for a switch device, or HID marking on it for if it's used for lighting, that kind of stuff. Circuit breakers use switches and high-intensity discharge lights, like light poles, have to be listed and shall contain that marking. So basically, you're not supposed to just use any circuit breaker as a switch regularly. I worked in a Target one time where they switched the lights on and off using the circuit breaker panel instead of switches on the wall. Every circuit breaker has to have its volt markings on it. This one here would be important. So example, in a 120 208 volt 3-phase 4-wire panel, you know, the one that looks like this, and there's your neutral. Those single pole circuit breakers are rated for 120 volts. And that's one reason why I don't put one on my B phase, because to get 208 volts out of it. That's why I only see single pole circuit breakers on the A and C phases in these panels. Does that make sense? 2-pole and 3-pole circuit breakers are rated for 240 volts in these panels. And this is why you can't use a single pole circuit breaker on the high leg, which is 208 volts to ground. The breaker's not rated for that voltage. And then there's a figure 5-30 that kind of shows you some of this information I gave here about the amp ratings, AIR ratings, circuit breakers, volt marks, that kind of stuff. Okay, that should cover almost everything with overcurrent protective devices. We're almost done, guys. So, classified locations. Again, Article 500 talks about basic classified locations. 501 is for Class 1, 502 is for Class 2, and 503 is for Class 3. We're in Class 3 this week. And I just want to point you to some articles in here to help you answer homework questions. 503.5 talks about surface temperatures. 503.10 talks about wiring methods. Things like what kinds of conduit, what kinds of stuff like boxes you can have, explosion proof, that kind of stuff. 503.25 talks about uninsulated exposed parts. 503.115 talks about switches, circuit breakers, motor controllers, and fuses. And 503.130 talks about luminaires or lights. Just wanted to point those out to you to kind of help you with that homework a little bit tonight. And speaking of homework, because we love homework, we're going to be doing all the homework this week except for 204.6. 204.6 we're going to skip because that is those blueprint reading that you're going to do next week. So as far as the reading worksheet goes, most of this is going to come out of that Electrical Systems Chapter 5 204.1 worksheet. A lot of this is going to come out of 210, 250, and 310 plus reading. The 204.2 worksheet. It's kind of all over the place, but basically it's all going to come out of 310.16 table. 204.3 worksheet.